Our friend Hakambat and his wife Boina once again set out on the journey into the boreal forest, carrying their house with them. Few nomadic Tsatan remain. There are estimated to be just 400 left in southern Russia and northern Mongolia. It is a way of life that is coming to an end, a noble, hospitable people that have been forgotten and are condemned to disappear. They have always been here, and travelers have always been fascinated by their strange customs. In his book of marvels, Marco Polo described them thus: "They are very savage people who live on the animals they trap. But the most extraordinary thing is that they tame large deer and mount them like horses." Over the next few days, the other families will move to the interior of the taiga. We had finished our work and were also setting out on a journey, in our case the journey back home. But part of our hearts remained there, with our friends the Tsatan, the reindeer people of the great boreal forests. At altitudes of between 4,000 and 5,000 meters at the foot of the sacred Apolobamba mountain chain in Bolivia, we discovered very different nomads. They do not lead herds in search of pasture. They are great masters, traditional doctors, inheritors of the knowledge of the great Tawantinsuyu, the Inca Empire. They are the Kayawayas who travel thousands of miles to fulfill their supreme mission of curing the ill. With their bags laden down with remedies on the backs of llamas, they travel to the ends of the former empire, Peru, Ecuador, and even Chile and Argentina. They leave from here, from the Bolivian province of Bautista Saavedra, whose dominant feature is the Apolobamba mountain range and the sacred snow-covered peak of Acamani, the home of Achachila, the grandfather, the Kayawaya ancestral spirit. They left from these small villages hemmed in deep valleys like this one, Kalaya, where today is a holiday. They are waiting for a caravan of Kayawayas that left 2 months ago. Yesterday they saw them coming down the snow-covered slopes, and the villagers have gathered at the outskirts to receive their masters, now descending through the fog. Here, living conditions are extremely harsh. Agriculture is very poor. They still use the sucacoyos or stepped terraces, some from pre-Columbian times, constructed virtually up to the very tops of the mountains. The villages scattered through the many valleys of the region are very isolated. The majority are nothing more than clusters of stone houses with straw roofs. In almost all of them, there are sick people waiting for the arrival of the doctors. Traditionally, the hamlets of Charathani, Curva, Chahaya, Watawata, Kalaya, and Chari have been the centers of Kayawaya training in empiric medicine and magic. We arrive at Charathani after a torturous journey. The narrow dirt tracks that run along the mountain slopes were blocked by landfalls caused by the rain, and at times it took us hours to clear them. Though 1 day later than planned, when we arrived, the people were waiting for us. The village chief spoke a few words of welcome. It was an event. Very few visitors even make it this far. Then we went out to meet the Kayawaya caravan the people of Kalaya were waiting for. Thanks to the porters who offered to help us, we were able to move rapidly. We had not had time to get used to the altitude of the almost 5,000 meters of this region. We met the caravan in the valley, already very close to Kalaya, where since dawn everyone had gathered to wait. Their journeys are almost never more than 6 months long. They are always back in the new year. But the Kayawayas of Curva sometimes make journeys of up to 3 years. Nowadays, the Kayawayas use cars or even planes and travel great distances with their remedies. But at least once a year, they journey in the traditional manner around the sacred mountains. Each snow-capped peak is the dwelling place of a different spirit, and it is their obligation to visit them and honor them. It is these spirits of the mountains that give them their skill and the wisdom to cure diseases and to sense and predict misfortunes. As they arrived, the village chiefs greeted them, kneeling down before them. They were imbued with the power of the great achachilas of the high peaks. Now, more than ever, they were sacred, wise men. After the greetings and welcoming dances, there are blessings with alcohol, and the table is prepared as an offering to Pachamama, Mother Earth. The women all sit together some distance from the ceremonial table, as tradition demands. They cannot take part directly in the ritual. All dealings with the gods are reserved exclusively for men. Before beginning the invocations, coca leaves are handed out. They are considered sacred. Those assembled devoutly chew them in a kind of communion which unites them and makes them participants in the sacrifices and offerings the officiating sorcerers make. The standard of the old Tawantinsuyu Empire presides over the ceremony as a symbol of the power of their ancestors. The Kayawayas have the privilege of bearing the Inca standard in the ancient rituals dedicated to Inti Raymi, the father sun god. They know ancient techniques for diagnosing illnesses. The one most frequently used consists of scrutinizing the intestines of the cuy, or guinea pig. They believe that the guinea pig, as it is passed over the body and the head of the patient, absorbs the evil they are suffering from. Immediately, the officiant dissects the animal alive and analyzes its entrails to determine the cause and likely prognosis of the illness. They also diagnose the mental health of the patient, the situation of his home and family, his spiritual relationship with the gods, and whether he has been the victim of some spell or evil eye. In their rituals, the Kayawayas use an esoteric language called Machak Huyai. Its origin is uncertain, though it is normally identified as the secret language of the Incas. The Andean culture has very close links with nature. They believe that the universe is a living being of which humans, plants, stones, mountains, clouds and rivers all form a part, and that everything is harmoniously interrelated. The Pachamama, the Earth Mother, is the personification of this belief. She is the symbol of fertility and the supreme deity of the Andes. The ceremony ends with the blessing of the incense and the burning of the elements that have made up the table: the jambu or llama fat, the sugar figures, the hanks of colored wool, the bars of gold and silver, the copal or resin, the strings of beads. The remains of the guinea pigs they have used become very dangerous objects, as they have absorbed the diseases of the patients, and therefore will have to be buried in a remote secret place, so they cannot infect people or animals. When night falls, the people return to their houses and wait for the healers to visit them. Here their diet is very poor. The daily menu is composed of maize and boiled potatoes. Their houses are generally of just one room. The kitchen is almost never separate from the area where they sleep. A few earthenware utensils and a shelf or two are virtually these people's only possessions. Depending on what the patient is suffering from and whether its origin is physical or magical, the curing ceremonies are performed in the light of day or in the dark of night. Fire is very important for invoking and requesting the assistance of powerful spirits, which are capable of undoing spells. It is also essential to purify and protect the doctors from the diseases and curses they are about to treat.
Kuya payawaiku, apu tataiku. Hey, 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 ya está. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, hey.
Meanwhile, under the influence of the moon, another group of Kayawayas makes offerings of llama fetuses to the Achachilas, so they will help them gather the medicinal plants they will use for treatments the following day. Of natural medicine. They prepare them using roots, sulfur minerals from the Andean volcanoes, and dehydrated animal substances. If their remedies have been studied and adopted by West medicine, quinine used to treat malaria, or unto, a medicinal fungus from which they extract a rudimentary penicillin. Normally, when they arrive at a village, they organize consultations in a house which is easily accessible for the patients. Apart from the guinea pig, they perform diagnoses by checking the patient's pulse and other external signs. Talking to the patient is also essential. From the description of the symptoms and his or her habits, they will know whether the origin of the ailment is some kind of spell. Each patient takes them a bundle of coca leaves. The healers will use them to make sure their diagnosis is right. Once the bundle has been unrolled, the coca leaves take on a specific function in the ceremonial tari. The kayawaya makes a first reading depending on their texture, malleability, shine and color. Then he takes a handful and slowly drops them to see how they fall. Little by little, the healer reaches his diagnosis and explains it to the patient. In this case, it wasn't a spell. The patient is suffering from bone ailment, which is what they call rheumatism. Before leaving, they give him some coca leaves, which will serve as an analgesic.
Buenas tardes, buenas tardes. Buenas tardes, señor. Recitaremos que estar
The father of this young girl believes that his daughter is suffering from fright. Here, fright is an illness produced by a strong impression and which gives rise to weakness and loss of spirit. He has brought them a jar of the girl's urine. This is another way they diagnose, through the urine. Sometimes they mix the urine with golpa, that is aluminium sulfate, which produces an effervescence which can be studied and analyzed. Other times, it is enough for them to simply observe the color. They rub an infusion of coca on the girl's legs and tell the father to perform a ceremony in which they appeal to the spirit, one of the main components of the human soul. They will have to use coca leaves, incense, copal, cloves and sugar. These things are necessary to invoke the god of lightning. When the consultations are over, the Kayawayas start to get ready for another journey, another pilgrimage to distant lands, which will enable them to continue fulfilling their eternal mission. The mission of the sacred magicians of the Tiwandin Suyu.